What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, I'm bringing to you lesson 1.5. This is how to order and compare fractions, decimals, and percent. So when it comes to ordering fractions, decimals, and percents, I'm going to give you a few steps here for your notes. Our first step is you're going to convert all the numbers into a common format. So with this, what that means is you're going to convert them all into fractions, or all into decimals, or all into percent. And our hint here, lovely little hint, is you're going to look for the conversion that is the easiest. Put a little smiley face next to the easiest word. In step number 2, you're going to put them in the required order. So the question will ask you either least to greatest or greatest to least. My suggestion is that you would underline the order or highlight the order somehow in every problem. Otherwise, it's really easy to overlook what order they should be in. And in step number 3, you need to rewrite the fractions, decimals, and percents in the original format. So here we have our example. Here we're going to order the following from least to greatest. So we're going to go and underline least, and we're going to go to greatest. So we're looking for the smallest one first, going to the biggest one next. And so we're given 135%, 13 and 5/10, and 8 and 3/5. And so our first step is we want to create these into a common format. So what I'm going to choose to do is to convert all these into decimals. And so 135% as a decimal, what I do is I add my decimal point at the end, and I'm going to move it 2 place values to the left, write my new decimal point, and so 135% as a decimal is 1 and 35/100ths as a decimal. The good news is 13 and 5/10 is already a decimal, so I'm just going to rewrite that one. And 8 and 3/5. So what I can do is go 8 and 3/5. If I want to write that as a decimal, I can multiply the top and bottom by 20 to get 8 and 60/100ths. And I can go ahead and write that as a decimal. I can write that as 8, and I can write 60/100ths, or I can write that as 8 and 6/10 if I wanted to. But for the sake of comparing, it's easier if we have the hundredths place listed out here. So let's go ahead now and line up our decimals to go ahead and compare them and order them. So I write 1 and 35/100ths, I can write 13 and 50/100ths, and I can write 8 and 60/100ths. So now let's see which one is our smallest. So our smallest one, obviously, when we compare just the ones place to start. So when I compare the ones place, we have our first one, 1 and 35/100ths is the smallest, but we're going to write that as a percentage. So I can write 135% is first. So I'm going to check that off, know that I did that one. My next smallest is 8 and 60/100ths, and that one was 8 and 3/5 using the original format. Let's check that off, and look what I have here. I have one left. So in my original form, I have 13 and 5/10. And so when we follow the steps, we order these from least to greatest. So now I'm given this example. I'm going to order the following from greatest, so that's the biggest, and I'm going to the least, or the smallest. And so I have to make a decision about the common format, which was my first step. And so when I look at these, I think the easiest way to compare these is going to be with the percent, because I look at 4.2% and I go, you know what, that might be kind of hard to figure out as a decimal. So the easier conversions here are going to be 42/100ths and 2/5 into a percent. So let's go ahead and do those. So I have my decimal point in 42/100ths. I'm going to move it 2 place values to the right. And so 42 hundredths as a percent is 42%. I'm going to go ahead and keep 4.2% as a percentage. And then for 2/5, I know that it needs to have a denominator of 100 to figure out the percentage. So I can do 5 times 20 is going to give me 100. And so whatever we do at the bottom, we do to the top. So 2 times 20 is 40. So 2/5 as a percent is 40%. So now my next step is I'm going to order these from greatest to least here. And so first thing is, which one's my biggest percent? So I see that 42% is my largest. So I'm going to rewrite that into the original format, which is 0 and 42 hundredths. My next biggest percent here is 40%, but I need to use the original format of 2/5. And last, but certainly not least, is our 4.2%. So I'm just going to rewrite that as 4.2%. And so now, with a simple conversion, whichever is the easiest, I'm given my order now from greatest to least. So now when it comes to ordering, you might see some different types of words show up in your problems. First one is, you might see the word ascending. It might say, put these fractions, decimals, and percents in ascending order. All that means is that you're going to order them from least to greatest. The way I remember that is, since it starts with the letter A, ascending, least I'm going to go A to Z. It's my weird mind thinking, how can I remember ascending? Is you're going to start with the first one, you're going to go to the last one, or the least to the greatest, smallest to the biggest. And descending is you're going in opposite order here. So you're going from greatest to least. And so it's like saying your alphabet backwards from Z to A. So now when we talk about comparing, we're going to compare either two different fractions, decimals, or percents. And we have some familiar notation that we're going to use here. So you might use the greater than symbol. You might use the less than symbol. Or you might use the equal to symbol. So here's an example. So just like how we order the fractions, decimals, and percents, what you want to do is when we compare, we want to try to find a common format to easily look at and compare these two numbers here. So with 10% and 1/8, I'm going to change 10% into a fraction. So I know my fraction for 10% is 1/10, and I'm going to compare that to 1/8. And so for me, I'm going to compare the denominators. And I know that when I have pizza, my slices, if I cut my pizza into 8 equal slices, my slices are bigger than if I cut it into 10 equal slices. So in that case, I can say 1/10 is less than 1/8. And now I'm given another example. I'm given the decimal 5/10. And I need to compare that with 3/5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change 3/5 into the decimal format. So I can do that by multiplying the top and bottom by 2. That will give me 6/10 as a fraction. And I can go ahead and write 6/10 as a decimal. And I'm comparing that with 5/10. So the appropriate notation to compare these, I can say that 5/10 is less than 6/10.